This is Marilyn Reaume, poet extraordinaire, and I'm with John Swinimer on the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Marilyn Reaume about the Village series of poetry books. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Based in Hamilton, Ontario, Marilyn Reaume is an educator, children's author, and poet. She's written 4 children's poetry books in the Village series and conducted presentations on poetry in several elementary schools. The poems focus on themes of connection, acceptance, and belonging. Several of the poetry books feature artwork by students at local schools. Marilyn's series of poetry books includes The Village, The Village Wedding, The Village Christmas, and The Village Grows. Cover art and design is provided by illustrator Katelan Balah. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Marilyn Reaume about the Village series of poetry books. So, Marilyn Reaume, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
It's a delight. Thanks for having me, John.
I appreciate your time. Before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what was the first comic book that you read?
Oh, wow. We're talking back in the 70s now, which I'm showing my age, but I remember the Mad comic books.
Oh, yeah. Those were good.
Yeah. That's the first thing I recall for sure. They were interesting, dynamic.
The first thing I always did with those is I go to the back page and try to fold it and see what the secret artwork was.
Yeah.
Those are great inspirations back when we were growing up, but I'm wondering what inspires you to create today?
Honestly, the people and the plants and the animals and anything around me that kind of incites a strong feeling. You know, anything of beauty, anything of majesty or awe, or things that are scary, or anything that provokes some sort of strong feeling in me. Okay. And that's what makes me want to take that feeling and do something with it. You know, take that in an act, which in my case, I express my creativity through my poetry and my writing. Other people might create a dance or a song or, you know, a painting. But in my case, I love to write.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That's fantastic. Now, we met at Chapters Indigo in the Toronto area, and you were promoting your latest series of books, Village series, and you have a very unique way of compiling your books, let's say, as an artist, as a creator, people who collaborate with you. And I wonder if you could talk about your latest book, your series in the books of the Village. What's the latest one that you just published?
Well, the one that I published, it's been a couple of years now, but the one is called The Village Christmas. So I have 4 in the series, 1 for each of the 4 seasons. So I started out in fall just because that's my favorite season, with a red tree that is a majestic old maple tree that's kind of the wise overlooker of the village. And this last one, like over the years, I started back in 2016, publishing the first one, and then that 4th one is 2021.
What's very unique is you explained to me that as a poet, you collaborate with some very unique artists to create the artwork to go along with the poetry. I wonder if you could explain, how did that happen? And basically, who are these people?
Well, these are young people, actually. I have been an elementary school teacher for many years. I'm retired now, but at the time I was working in an elementary school in Burlington, and I had been writing some poems and wanting to compile them together into a book for all ages, not just children. And so I had at my disposal all kinds of student talent. So I had actually gone to the principal of my school and asked if we could have a contest, a drawing contest. Children between grade 4 and grade 8 drew pictures that were inspired by my poetry. And I was the judge of the contest, and I picked 40 winners from the school, and they got to be published illustrators in my book.
Wow, that's pretty cool to have your artwork published at that age. I think that's a nice thing to have happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We celebrated their successes in the school, and I have them all acknowledged in the front of my books, their names and ages and which poem they illustrated. And I tell them, yes, you are a published illustrator.
Wow, that's very encouraging. Is it your hope perhaps to inspire future artists when they see their artwork published?
For sure. Absolutely. Because I think it's a sad state of affairs in the schools that the artists themselves don't get a lot of accolades. It's the athletes and the musicians, but you really never hear about the kids who have talent at drawing. Many of these kids, I think they thought it was a contest. So, they're hoping they're going to win. They win. We have a big party. I, introduce that to the entire school body, and they have some pride in their work. And so definitely there were kids in grade 7 and 8, especially, that were so excited by their work. Their parents contacted me, and many of them talked about wanting to do their own book when they grew up.
Wow, that's amazing. And I also understand that not only do you go to bookstores, but you actually go into schools and do presentations
Yes.
about your books too.
I do. I do. I've done about 6 or 7 now in the last couple of years. I was starting online ones during COVID. I did a few then, but in person, I've now done about 6 or 7 over the last couple of years, usually poetry months in the schools, which is April. So I have PowerPoint presentations where I highlight the kids' work and I talk about my inspiration for how I began writing my poems and how I self-published.
And what sort of feedback do you get from the students after the presentation? Do they come up to you or do they ask more questions?
Definitely. I've had a few come up to me I've asked them myself, being curious about what it is that gets them excited. They love to hear the story that I talk about my cat and how my cat inspired me to write my very first poem years ago. They love to know that these are story poems, because a lot of kids lose interest in poetry about 10 years old because they read all the poetry in grade 2 and 3 and 4 when they're little and they're cutesy and they're funny. But then they start looking at poems that are really for adults. They don't understand them. They lose interest in them.
Mm.
So these are fun story poems. Most of them rhyme. I do work with the kids and we workshop the writing of their own poem. And then that gives them the sense of their own creativity.
Ah, that's very encouraging. I want to switch gears a wee bit and talk about how you get your books done. I understand that you self-publish your books. Wonder if you could walk me through how you get that done.
Okay, sure. Well, of course, it was a learning experience for me way back when, because I decided that I was just going to, as an intelligent person, I could figure this out. And I had lots of people to ask questions. So the first step was I needed to find somebody to do my graphic art, to marry together my text, the poems, and the children's artwork. So I went on the website at Sheridan College in Oakville looking for perhaps a student that I could hire that would do that work. And I did find somebody very talented, a Toronto girl named Katelan Balah. She had actually her own website and a couple of other children's books that she had done. We had a Skype interview at the time and I hired her. So I just scanned all the children's artwork into my computer and sent her all the typed up poems. And she was the creative person who made beautiful borders and cut and pasted and did all her computer magic with my work. And of course, we talked about it. I had my own vision for what I'd like and things for her to change. But once she did all that, I had a digital book. And then I went looking for a printer. So I called several printers in the Hamilton area and got pricing. I had to answer questions that I didn't at first know the answers to, like, what kind of binding do you want? What kind of cover do you want? What size book do you want? So basically, I went to the library and looked at other poetry books that I liked and came up with the answers to those questions. Once I knew, I'd got quotes, made a decision, and printed off 350 books and picked them up 2 weeks later when they were ready.
There you
hot
go.
Off the press.
Yeah, and you were pretty happy with the way things turned out.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I never really thought it was going to end up being a series in the beginning. It was just a project that I was really excited about, but it was so much fun that I decided to keep right on going.
That's great. Now, we met, as I mentioned before, at an Indigo store, and you had a table there. You're doing promotion. I guess you had worked with the store to have a table and you could do promotion. Wanted to ask you, how did that event go for you?
Oh, it went really well. I beat my record. I mean, I started out a few years ago at Indigo and I was selling a half a dozen books. And I've learned along the way how to engage people in conversation, call them over to the table, and they're excited to see the children's artwork. It's a big feature of the book. I'm doing better now a few years later, and I was invited to the Canada Day one in St. Catharines, the chapter store, and they had, for the very first time, 6 authors on the same afternoon. So there were 3 authors for adult fiction and then 3 for children's, which included me. And it was a very successful event.
Glad to hear. What other plans do you have for promoting your books?
Well, right now I'm looking at the second in the series is called The Village Wedding. And that one is most popular with people that are getting married. And I'm finding it a little bit harder to find an audience for that one. So I've thought about going to different wedding shows and stores that sell wedding dresses, things like that, getting them in that kind of store. But the others, really, I'm trying also to expand beyond the Indigo stores. I probably go to 2 a month. So I have about 20 Indigos that I go to in a year's time, which has been my main source of selling. I'm also on Amazon, but typically I find it's hard to find my work on Amazon. You have to be specific and say The Village by Marilyn Reaume, and not everybody knows that information. So
a little bit tricky, but you're getting it done, that's for sure.
Yeah, getting it done. I think more like I've done Christmas fairs and different types of things. You buy a table and I probably need to get a website if I'm going to do that.
Right. You've got your Village series. What's next? Do you have any other books planned for the future?
Well, I have written a story about a child who is really questioning their gender. And it's topical, but it's something that I don't think they're talking about openly as much in the schools here. I have sent it out to a couple of publishers, and I've had some offers for hybrid publishing that book. It's called Jodi's Gender. So I think I'm going to do some editing on the story itself and send it back out to some more publishers. I would ideally love not the hybrid situation, but a publisher that would take it full scale.
Well, I know that you mentioned you don't have a website right now, but where can people find out more about you and buy your books?
Well, they could contact me by email. My name is on my email, so it's marilynreaume@gmail.com. And if they emailed me, I would be happy to reach out to them. I'm also, as I said, I'm on Amazon. But really, that's basically how to contact me.
Okay. Well, Marilyn, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
I would like to get across the fact that the messages of my poetry, the themes, are, I think, really important for all people. I was inspired to write about some of the issues that I see in the schools today with students, young people, including things like anxiety, people pleasing. These kinds of characters I've created in my book to show that people can be resilient and learn things like empathy, that we are all connected, and that there's a sense of belonging in a village that I was trying to get across. So I think that, as I said, the content is for both children and adults because they're humanistic qualities that we all admire.
Thanks to Marilyn for the chat. You can discover more about Marilyn online on Facebook. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations from creators on making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to visit the website and subscribe so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites. And you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2025.